What if worship? What if belief in God? What if these religious practices in the church that, in one sense, challenge us in the bearing our crosses and doing things that aren't super entertaining? How do you see these practices with the paradigm, having a paradigm shift of they're not boring, they shouldn't be entertaining, the mass and such. It's about worship. It's about religious practices is about having good habits of thinking to God, thinking about God, raising your mind to God, raising your heart to God. And I think that paradigm of seeing religious practice and religiousness in a positive light would be a great thing for a lot of Catholic teens, because then they can put their Catholic identity in the proper perspective and not something that is forced upon them, but as something that grows out of their heart as they want to design their life around. They desire to design their life around this thing, which we'll get to in a little bit. But here we are. Paradigms and principles. There is a God. He is in you. And why did I write this? Because we'll see in a moment why having a certain way of thinking sometimes can make you think that you have control over what you actually don't have control over, or that things that are consistent isn't something you create, but it's something that's already been created by God. Is the most consistent. So there is a God, but He isn't you, and seeing through God's eyes in the best way we can, I think would be the best for us as Catholics. So what is a paradigm, though? Paradigm is how we view the world. It's our perception of three things, says the author: self, others, and life. And this gets a tiny bit wonky, I think, when it gets to the next slide, but he lays it out differently than this. This is where the Catholicness comes in. This is where I come in. He has self, others, and life as three types of paradigm. So paradigm of how we see ourselves, the paradigm of how we see others, and the paradigm of how we see life in general. And so let me go through one by one. So the author writes that the paradigm of self has to do with, how do we see ourselves in a positive, negative light? Do we see the most negative things of ourselves and all things that need to change? Do we see the positive? So I wrote self-esteem, self-confidence there. A great video about how we see ourselves in this positive, negative light in terms of body acceptance is the 50 people, one question, and their question is, if you were to change anything about your body, what would it be? And it goes through a number of adults who say, oh, this, that, and the other thing, their eyes, their ears, whatever it might be. Even with me doing all these videos, I keep thinking I see certain things and it's like, I wish that was different. But then when you get to the kids, like if I were to ask my kids, if there was something you'd want to change about your body, what would it be? All these kids wanted to add something. And not like the adult add, where it's like a subtraction and an adding or something to make it more beautiful. So, so the video, when it goes to the kids, they added stuff like, I can't remember exactly, but if I were to think of my kids, it'd be like, I'm adding a dragon fire, a breathe fire, something like that, or something fantastical. They'd be adding wings. They'd be adding all sorts of things that would be like, oh, it's cute. They have elf ears, It was so sweet and so innocent, and it's a really good video. If you're gonna search it up, it's by Jubilee. They put a lot of content, but also a lot of weird content that I don't necessarily would support. But they do this one video that I really love, and the 50 people, one question videos are pretty good, especially this one. Actually, I think they ask what is love in one of the videos, which is pretty cool. But, okay, self-confidence, self-esteem. Okay, what else about paradigm of self, how we see ourselves, a perception of ourselves, humility, narcissism, generosity, selfishness, pride, etc. There's a lot more to it. But humility, are we humble people? Do we see ourselves as humble people, or do we try to be as such? Narcissistic, are we thinking of ourselves way too much or too highly, maybe? A humility, not in the sense of like, I want to be humble, but in like, you're humble because you know your faults, because you know how imperfect you are. So like right now, I'm very humble with all these videos because I'm trying to do the best I can, but I'm at home with my kids and stuff, and so my wife and that they're in the background and they can't help it. And I've tried to not have that, but it's inevitable. And so I'm humbled with what I can do versus what I want to do, which is what I see a lot of cool videos being put out by a lot of different people. And this is my style currently. So I'm humble with my lowly style of these videos. But then there's narcissism, and then selfishness and pride. I find myself where I have my opinion about stuff. So that has paradigm of self. Do we see ourselves too prideful, too narcissistic? Do we try to be generous with our time and or something like that? And then the paradigm of others is like, do we judge others on what we see? Do we judge others on what we think about them? As it kind of ties into, are we prideful and we narcissistic, and then boom, it goes into, oh, we think others are a certain way already by meeting them for the first time and judging their whole life or their whole person on that one meeting. Forgiveness, I guess that goes to paradigm of our perception of the people of, do we give out forgiveness? Do we dole out forgiveness, or do we hold it back? Are we loving or not of other people? Or do we see people as loving to us? Maybe, I don't, like, depends on our upbringing. Openness, lustful, patience, respectful, rude. And so it goes kind of positive and negative words throughout there, but are we open to other people? Do we see people open to us? Are we lustful of other people? Do we want to use them? Or do we see people doing such to us? As a father of a boy and two girls right now, I'm not just charged with going like, well, I wonder how my daughters are going to be and what boys are how they're going to treat her. But I'm also wondering, how is my son going to treat girls when he gets older? So, and there's patience. Are we patient with other people? If our perception of others is judge them and we don't forgive them, and maybe we're narcissistic, we may not be patient with them at all. But if we are generous, if we are humble, if we forgive, if we're loving, then we will be patient and respectful. If we're not, then we'll probably end up being rude. And these paradigms will kind of shift back and forth, because sometimes we do judge others and sometimes we're very respectful, and it goes back and forth, and we're not perfect, so it has to go both ways. Hopefully people are as forgiving of me as I need to be forgiven of them. And paradigms of life, and this is really where a lot of youth ministry and a lot of faith-based ministries, they all really focus on, which is the paradigm of life. How do you see things in the lens of God? How do you see things in the lens of Christ? Faith, parents. You can't help but have your parents' prejudices and judgments and point of view in the world until you start forming your own. Friends. I mean, I sort of wish that went into food, because I like certain foods and my son and my daughter doesn't. But whatever. They play with their broccoli, whereas I eat it, Friends. Paradigm of how our perception of our friends' school thing. Now, this is okay. So the author Sean Covey writes faith or writes parents, friends, school, things, work, politics. He writes those as centers, and so you're centering your life around these things instead of something like principles. And so we're going to get that in a moment. But in this case, you have things that really affect you and how you see life in general, and that's faith, parents, friends, school, things, work, politics. And so we'll get in the principles in a moment. So there you go. That's the Catholic version of the 3 paradigms of the 7 habits of high effective teens.